All right, thank you all for joining me. My name is Daniel Stillwell. I am the editor for the IFTA e-News. We are going to have an interview today with some board members. So all three of you are in your second year of the board process. And I have just a couple of very simple get to know you types of questions. So before we jump into the three questions, why don't each of you introduce yourself and tell me where you are?
Shall I go ahead first?
Go for it.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'm in Turkey. I live in Izmir and I work in Izmir. I completed my PhD on family marriage and family therapy in the United States in coordination with the Hebert Institute. And that's how I got introduced to IFTA. William Hebert was one of my professors, and he led me the way to IFTA. Currently, I'm retired from the government educational institution of Turkey, Ministry of Education. I'm retired, and currently I'm working as a freelance therapist based in Izmir. I taught a semester of interview skills at a private university here in Izmir last year. And then the corona came, and I decided to end that position for myself just before corona. And since then, I'm working freelance. Well, the most important achievements in my life about marriage and family therapy is being the coordinator of an education program here in Turkey, which was the first program which was recognized by IFTA, meeting the requirements of IFTA. So I coordinated that program for 4 years, which ran 2 years in a two programs in a row, let me say. But with Corona, everything is waiting right now, so we don't know what's going to happen. Currently, I'm focused on my practice right now. And I'm also doing my second PhD on developmental psychology here in Turkey, Izmir again, and I'm about to finish it. At the stage of my thesis, about to finish it.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. But right now I'm just a retired ministry personnel, and then I'm the practicing therapist. We don't know what's coming ahead. We'll just wait and see. And I've been,
Wonderful.
yes, on the IFTA board for the second year now.
Okay. Aníbal, you want to take that?
Yeah, Aníbal Torres, originally from Puerto Rico, currently residing in central New York, near Syracuse, New York. I work for the State University of New York, Morrisville. That's SUNY Morrisville. I'm the Dean of Liberal Arts, Sciences, and Society. I'm a marriage and family therapist by training. Both my master's and PhD I did in Syracuse University, and I also have a bachelor's in psychology from Universidad Interamericana de Puerto Rico, San Germán campus. So why IFTA? I think it's a lot of like-minded therapists. When I started looking for a professional organization home, and also when I went to the conference, it had such a different feel than other marriage and family therapy conferences. So I felt more at home, I felt more welcome, and I felt that for me was a better place to exchange ideas and learn what is going on in the field, not only in the United States, but also internationally. So that's how I got involved with IFTA, and then I was asked to be a board member, and I agreed. I asked to be a board member again, so I renewed my term, and here I am, done.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Sebastian?
So thank you, Daniel, for this opportunity. I'm Sebastian Perumbilly, originally from India, and came to the United States to do my studies. I did my master's. I did 2 masters and 1 PhD here, one in biomedical ethics. That was my first one, and then moved into family therapy at the University of Connecticut for the master's. And then also after that, I did my PhD also in marriage and family therapy from the Department of Human Development and Family Sciences at UConn. Currently, I am associated with Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, Connecticut, close about 3 miles away from Yale University. Those who do not know where our location is. I am an associate professor, tenured, and then that's right. So that's the introduction piece.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And Sebastian, you can, even if you have some understanding of the Indian perspective, and Aníbal, the Puerto Rican, part of what I think is so interesting about getting to have these networking connections is to experience what is systemic therapy, what does family therapy look like around the world. So Özge, I'll start with you again. You know, you told us what you do, but what is family therapy, the developing sort of field of family therapy, looking like in Turkey?
Well, unfortunately, it's not very well recognized because most of the therapeutic career in Turkey is based on individual therapy. So it's like if you look at the history of marriage and family, we're kind of following the same pattern, which was followed all around the world. The problem is we don't have many people educated in systemic therapy in the academia. And since most of the therapeutic training programs are done through academia, most of the educators are based skilled and have knowledge on individual therapy. However, we do have a program called family counseling, which is kind of recognized by the government, but then it's not recognized as a career or an occupation. It's more like a skill that anyone can have. And the training program started with just 100 hours of training, and then it increased up to 300 hours of training, and then like 30 hours of supervision and 150 hours of practice was added to it. But then there is no, there are no conditions about the trainers, no qualifications about the trainers or the qualifications of the content of the education programs. So we could say that it's just like at the taking the baby steps and like the growing pains. But then there's some kind of an understanding in the field about the content of family therapy and how it should be. And the family counseling, unqualified family counseling programs served as a reference for good programs, actually. They showed about how it shouldn't be like. So, you know, people are learning from experience over here. And we have some private universities who have good qualified family therapists, academic staff, and who are teaching qualified programs. And I think 2 of them are accredited by the IFTA certificates and everything. So we are moving on. We are moving on. It's not like what it was like 10 years ago, but still, is it enough? No. Can it be better? Of course, but you know, every small step is a progress, of course. So there is progress, I would say, but we still have a way to go.
Of course.
Okay, is that
Yes.
all? Okay, thank you.
Sebastian?
Yeah, thank you, Özge. Along with Özge, I would say in Indian context, family therapy is still an emerging field. And, you know, I was in India in 2019 for about 5 months. I was doing a Fulbright research fellowship there, and I was part of a university, a huge university in southern India called Christ University. They have almost 24,000 students. And so during that 5 months time, I was part of a psychology department. So I kind of wanted to get a sense or pulse of how India is dealing with these kind of issues, especially from a family-focused way. And I found surprisingly that a lot of programs are already doing it. Although family therapy is not an independent discipline in itself as an MFT degree, or those are not there yet. But most of the mental health professions are adopted or integrated family therapy in a way. But the saddest part is, although India has a lot of people and a lot of scholars, they have not developed a, contextually specific or sensitive to Indian context, Indian sociocultural context. They have not developed any theories yet. They still lean on the Western models, like, all those, we hear stories like Minuchin and all those kind of, all those traditional things that we are used to here. So we are in that field. Mostly psychiatrists do it, mostly psychology professionals do it, and also social work. So India, I think it's almost time for India to work on its own unique contribution. The good news, my sense was that there are many Indian PhDs who were trained in the United States, mostly in family therapy, are going back to India, developing programs there. So again, I identified about 6 or 7 of them in different universities there. So it was great to hang out with them and to talk to them about some of those. And there are some clinical professionals also trained in the US. They did their masters and went back. So in terms of family therapy, it is still developing. When I say that, from the Indian perspective, it is still emerging. And it is not yet an independent field there. They are embedded in psychiatry or psychology or social work, mostly.
Yes, I think that's a great point, that each culture in some ways, by contextualizing the theory, gives it actually more life than, trying to restrict it. So great point.
No, and I'm a little bit disconnected from what is happening in my home country contextually, but it is not unlike what my colleagues have said here. It is it's growing. People are adopting more, but it's more of a speciality within the classical mental health field. So usually people get certificates in marriage and family therapy after being a psychologist or a social worker, right? Those are the traditional mental health professions. So how it has evolved is more of a concentration, like a specialization, which you get after you get your classical mental health degree, which I don't view as a bad development. I think in some ways it ingrains more marriage and family therapy within the mental health professions as a critical area of specialization, right? Instead of a distinct profession, it's just a critical area which you as a mental health professional have to integrate to be successful dealing with a specific population. So that's the way it has developed in Puerto Rico, and that's the way it has kept on developing. I'm not aware of any big push to make it like in the United States, like a single licensable profession, right? That you get an LMFT, LCSW, licensed psychologist, right? That is very distinct, very separate. It's more integrated into the fabric of mental health training. Once again, and I don't view that necessarily as a bad development. It's just different on how the field has developed in the United States, which is more as a distinct professional identity and distinct mental health provider.
Okay, so then I guess the last question I'd like to ask is, you're on the board of IFTA. Why? We have hopefully people who would watch this that would think about joining the board in the future. And what have you learned? What do you hope to do in the next year and a half, still on your round of membership?
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Well, multiculturalism and how therapy functions in different cultures is very interesting to me. And meeting new people and getting ideas about how this therapy business is taking place in different cultures amuses me. And that's why if the conferences are very good opportunities actually for me to learn about different cultures, compare, learn about the cultural context, and especially because I'm coming from a, more of a collectivist culture. And since, as Sebastian mentioned, originally marriage and family therapy is coming from more of an individualistic culture, and how it adapts to a collectivist cultures. And is there actually something like collectivist and individualistic anymore in this global world? So these questions are very interesting to me. And being on the board, hearing about different people's opinions, and being a representative of a collectivist culture in a multicultural setting was my aim, actually, being heard and telling about what's happening in different cultures, and representing and creating some kind of change, if it's possible, in a multicultural context. That was my main goal, actually.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bastian, you want to go?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Annabelle. Again, I agree with Özge in terms of that. I love IFTA, and the reason I do that, I always go for the AMFT conference also. AMFT is kind of very solid in its own rights, and when I go to IFTA, what I see is the variety. People from all over the world come together, and they're not just family therapists the way we understand it in the United States. Psychiatrists I met from Australia, from Vancouver, Canada, and different parts of the world. And all these professionals come together from their own specific, unique training in their own cultural context, come together and interact. We have sessions, conferences are great. At the same time, again, what happens outside of the conferences, when you go for breakfast together, the trip together, lunch and dinner, that's a powerful stuff for me. But that's a great time. I've developed great friends in that sense. So I remember that when family therapy became its own, it became a kind of a group in itself. We somehow disconnected from the other mental health professions. But in IFTA, I see the opposite. We are maintaining our own. At the same time, we are connecting to other professionals, like-minded professionals, and hanging out with them, getting to know their culture, what's happening in their country, and what do the therapists do in their country, in their sociocultural context and all. It's kind of fascinating. So it's always, I get excited about this, that inclusivism, this kind of broad, because we are dealing with human issues, and again, every person from every part of the world, every professional has so much to add to my own understanding. So it's very great experience. I have never had any disillusionment or any problems in that IFTA context. I remember Aníbal, and we met in Spain, and we met in different parts of the world. It's fun. Again, it's exciting meeting from colleagues from Hong Kong. They talk about it. So again, it's I love IFTA, and I really, last thing I would say is, unfortunately, I was looking forward to the board meeting last year in Switzerland. That was my first one. It was canceled. This time it is not there. And hopefully, I think in the third year, before we retire as board members, we'll get a chance to hang out. I mean, this online thing is cool, but it's not the same, right? Again, that's what I would say.
Yeah, to me gives me two things, right? It gives me an opportunity to break out of that echo chamber. I think at least here in the States, sometimes there's that tendency to be with others that are like-minded, that have the same point of views. MFTs are with MFTs, MSWs are with MSWs, psychiatrists have their own conference, psychologists their own. I think IFTA, like Sebastian and said, provides an opportunity to interact across mental health disciplines, right? And share outside of that echo chamber, be enriched by new ideas, have conversations, and also consider different points of view that I wouldn't have considered otherwise. The other part is that IFTA is a very intimate atmosphere, right? There's a lot of sense of community building. You feel like I don't know, every time I go to an IFTA conference, I feel at ease. I feel like, oh, I need to talk to here, that one. There's not like a throng of 10,000 people. Also, you get to interact with people that you read about in ways you wouldn't dream in other conferences, right? Because it's smaller, it's more intimate, people are more geared towards conversation. I have interacted with people readily in IFTA that if I go to other conferences, there's like a line of 100 people trying to get a word in or a conversation. And there you have a chance to actually converse and get to know people instead of just going to talks, sitting there, absorbing material, go to the next one, move to the next one. And before you know it, you say, what you learned? Well, I learned about this and this. Who you got to know? Nobody. I saw a lot of faces. I think in IFTA, you get actually a chance to get to know people in the conference, to converse with them in a deeper way and to get out of that echo chamber, which I think is problematic. So I think the conference are a perfect mechanism to develop a community and develop a community that is diverse and also a community that is accepting, right? Even though we're very diverse, I have never encountered anything else that acceptance, inclusivity, openness to new ideas, and openness to debate, which I really appreciate.
Yes, that's a great point because I see the board members as sort of being the leaders and the stewards of that sense of intimacy and camaraderie and diversity. And so the fact that all three of you seem to embody that hopefully is a good sign to other people that yes, get involved, show up, and you will meet people. Your mind will be expanded, and you will find that acceptance in ways that maybe don't exist everywhere else.
Yeah, and not only that, you'll be able to converse. You know, whoever you read usually show on IFTA, I can tell you that because I've been there. And you can actually converse with them and ask conversations and have a two-way conversation instead of just being an anonymous face in a sea of, I don't know, how big are those talks sometimes in the other conferences? Like 500, 250 people. It's a difference between that big of that context and a context when you go to talks and there maybe 30, 40, sometimes even 20, 15 people interacting more as a community than just a receiving information.
And Daniel, I would also add to this, like, you know, the pre-conference tour. He would, oh man, that's the best. Because, you know, we spend the entire day with a bunch of people, 40, 50 people. And, you know, that's kind of coolest thing. I made a lot of great friends. So anyway, that's powerful. As Aníbal said, it's really, really, you're not in an echo chamber. It's kind of powerful, great way to connect with each other.
Yeah, this is evidence that we are better when we are together. And in the time of COVID, that has been shifted. And so thank you very much, all three of you, for joining this little chat today. Hopefully people will get to watch this, get to maybe even introduce themselves to one of you in the future and say, hey, I like your passion and leadership. What do I need to do to get more involved? Any last final thoughts before we end today?
I think we are in most of us were, at least, I mean, including Dan, you are in the academia now, you are in a practice setting. So I think this is an interesting time for us, right? COVID-19, it has taught a lot of things to us. And I'm kind of, maybe in the future conferences, probably some of the presenters or our field, IFTA or our organization may create some space. What did we learn from this pandemic? Pandemic, this 0.125 micron size virus brought us all to our knees, despite the fact that how technologically advanced we are. But still, I think that taught us a lot. And I think even that, as an academician, I think that we are forced to think, to be academicians in a new way, a different way. The old may not be applicable. I'm sure Aníbal he knows more about this from an administrative perspective, like how the pandemic has revolutionized or continuing to revolutionize education, family therapy education or mental health professions. That's an interesting thing to look into. Maybe I think I'm really fascinated by the articles that are coming from different parts of the world about how this pandemic has impacted the way we train people, the way we train clinicians, the families are also going through a lot of changes because they are locked up in their own homes. When I was, getting out, I think I just kind of quickly, March 10th, 2020, I was writing in something in my office in the evening. I was writing. Then a police officer, campus police officer comes and tells me, Seb, we have to leave now. We are evacuate. There's an order to evacuate campus now. And I said, maybe a few days we'll be out. I was picking up my stuff from there. I said, maybe a couple of I'll be. 2 days later, we got an email from our administration saying that, oh, the campus is going to be closed until April 5th of 2020. Then we'll come back. I am still in my office. It's almost a year. So again, educating, functioning from home as a clinician, as an academician, as a supervisor. It's kind of a new world. I think it has taught us a lot. I think it will be interesting to look at this experience and see what we learned from this. In what way can we prepare for the future academic, work, being away from everything pretty much at home. Although technology is great, but it has a lot of limitations also, So I'm saying that's an interesting topic for IFTA in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I talked too much about that.
That's okay. Özge, you have more PhDs than anyone else that I know. So even if it's 1.9, you're almost. So I'll give you the last word.
Well, thank you for organizing this meeting. It was very interesting to hear about what was going on all around the world again. And that's IFTA. IFTA gets us together, and it makes us more diverse and more flexible. And I think, Sebastian, that's one of the most important things the COVID pandemic has taught us, to be flexible. And I see that it as a very key word in all parts of contexts of our lives. We need to be flexible now even more with the pandemic, and we don't know what's coming afterwards, actually. So we need to be more open-minded, more flexible, and more accepting towards change. And thank you, Daniel, for organizing this and getting us together. And hopefully we'll be able to be together physically very soon with the next conference. Hopefully, fingers crossed, inshallah, we say in Turkish, inshallah, we'll get together and we'll be together face to face and enjoy those conference parties, daily tours, which are the most essential parts, for the network and the fun part of it. And hope to see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Daniel.
Well, thank you all very much. And yes, we'll see you hopefully virtually in a month, and hopefully in person in Japan next year.
Is it Toyama or something like that? Yeah.
Yes, they're still working on it, but that's the goal. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.